Hey guys, I'm Amber and this is Amber Online, and last week I went to see Divergent with one of my girlfriends, and because I haven't had a chance to read the second book yet, and I have the patience of a fruit fly, she let me know what happened in the second book, and that got me to thinking, and those thoughts will comprise the content of today's episode. Oh yes, it's intriguing. I said patience of a fruit fly because they're short-lived. They only have got 24 hours, so they can't be really patient. But anyways, that's not important. What is important is, spoilers ahead, the second book of Divergent reveals that this society is actually based around a group of people that were genetically experimented on in order to breed out undesirable traits in humanity and sort of magnify the desirable traits like the altruism, intelligence, courage, things like that. And that's how you get the different houses based on these traits that these experimented upon people developed. And the Divergents are actually people who are healing, the genetic code is healing after the experiments, and they're sort of going back to becoming normal people again. Now, for those of you who don't know, and that's probably most of you, I actually work in a microbiology lab, dealing with pathogenic bacteria all day. It's my passion. I really enjoy it. And I was talking to one of the doctors at work, and she said something to me that I thought was both amusing and not terribly reassuring coming to a doctor, but from a doctor. But she said people are basically magic, and we don't know why a lot of things in the body happen the way they do. But the things that we do know are very, very fascinating to me, essentially. So something I do a lot at work is genetic sequencing of bacteria. So not a full genome sequencing, but a polymerase chain reaction test that does ribosomal identification so we can tell what kind of bacteria they are, and that's really boring, so I'm not going to tell you all about that unless you're into science, and then it's really fascinating. But for most of you, that's probably not why you come here. But basically, we can look at the gene sequence of a bacteria, and genetic sequencing really is the future of dealing with microbiology treatments, because we're going to be able to tell how to kill these bacteria based on their genetic thumbprint. And as I'm sure many of you know, the Human Genome Project was able to sequence the genetic code of a person, and it took several weeks, and the first time they did it, now they've got it down to several hours, so you can genetically sequence the entire code of a person. And a lot of things that we have learned from this sequencing is that certain people have genetic predispositions to different kinds of cancer. I'm sure you know that. You have a gene that's inherited that will allow you to have or cause you to have breast cancer, almost guaranteed. That's why we had the Angelina Jolie mastectomy, because she found out she had that gene. We have other genes that can be linked to a otherwise healthy human being having a predisposition to an infection with a certain kind of fungus. We have other genetic predispositions that have evolved in people where there's a lot of malaria, that we have the thalassemias. So my question is, in conjunction with Divergent, and really a lot of science fiction, if you have the choice to tailor your genetic code, would you? Because while it's not here now, the fact that we can sequence genes will only lead to gene therapy. And gene therapy can allow us to change our code in order to breed out or manipulate out these undesirable traits that can make us sick. And if we can manipulate out the undesirable traits that make us sick, or predict how we're going to become sick, do you want to know? Do you want to change it? Do you want to make designer children? And this is the subject discussed in a lot of sci-fi, particularly the more and more advanced we get. When you hear news about 3D printers potentially printing organs in the future, you just need a stem cell base and then they can rearrange the molecules in there to make any organ you want. Also not there yet, but it's an interesting concept. We can print tissue, we can print you a better heart if your heart doesn't work. And is this a good thing? For most of science fiction, it's always a cautionary tale. So obviously in Divergent, society has been sort of segregated from the normal people because they were found to be unstable, undesirable, this experiment wasn't good, and they're just taking the Divergents out as they heal from this experiment because it didn't work out. If you read something like Pretties or Uglies, which is another YA science fiction series, which I actually find very, very enjoyable if you're looking for something to read after Divergent or after Hunger Games. Pretties and Uglies is also very good, and they deal more with sort of gene therapy of already born people that they have surgeries, they have manipulations to change their appearances so they're uniformly beautiful. They're making designer people. Is that desirable? Well, I think that a lot of this anxiety comes from the idea that we won't be able to get it right. So when we're gene sequencing someone, we can see what they're already made of. We can find the traits of their parents that they're already made of. But this idea that we could insert desirable traits, that we could bring out green eyes if you wanted your baby to have green eyes, or preserve red hair as the red-headed stepchildren are diminishing from the face of the earth. Would we do this? Is it playing God, or is it just protecting ourselves? If we can account for the gene that causes autism that's rampant now and just select it out when you're having a baby, I think the idea would be, of course, as I don't have children, so I don't know, but if you're a parent and you're like, well, your kid could be born with leukemia, or the gene to develop leukemia, or we could just edit that out. Of course you're going to go edit it out. And if we begin doing that, how far down the rabbit hole do we go is essentially the question. This is not to answer this question, this video. It's more just to pose this question, saying that probably within my lifetime, maybe within your lifetime, and if not, certainly within the next generation's lifetime, we're probably going to have the capability to do this kind of gene sequencing. Because we're getting, first of all, to a post-antibiotic era. A lot of the bacteria we have now are superbugs, and we're not going to be able to kill them soon with the antibiotics we have. And if we go much harsher, we're going to end up killing people. We're going towards a era where we know that the current cancer treatments we have aren't great, because if you get chemotherapy when you're 15, you're probably going to have another form of leukemia by the time you're in your 50s. So we want alternate treatments for things, and if we can just make our codes better, make ourselves stronger, wouldn't that be better? I don't know. What do you guys think? I just sort of wanted to put this idea out here because it's something I've been thinking about, and I know I talk a lot about my sci-fi fantasy side and not so much about my science side of things, but I'm really into this idea that we could potentially gene sequence ourselves into perfection. If you could go back as an adult and have something corrected with genetic therapy, would you? If you could do it to your child, would you? Or would you wait until they're old enough to choose? This, I don't know, it's a complicated moral question. It's like we just cloned another animal. There's a baby dachshund that was just cloned in England. So we're there as far as taking something and duplicating it, so we're just around the corner from taking something and changing it. Or do you think we're not? Do you think we're way off? Let me know what you think. This is just sort of a thought experiment video, and one that I think is important when we're looking at the technologies coming up. Anyways, this is sort of an insight into me and a thought experiment for you. Have a good day. Bye.